Yeah, my computer is slightly slow. Okay, in between, if you have any question from those recorded lecture that I can address, it appears that it is taking some time. Maybe but it is not allowing me to rejoin also. And also for the Monday batch of Power Electronics Lab, please note that this next week, we are going to have compensatory lab for Monday and Wednesday batch, right? And this experiment 6 we'll do in the next week. And again, within 12 November, we'll finish all the class related work. Only your lab Viva will be pending in the last week, which is there in your test schedule. So you'll just need to appear for 30 minutes slot, and that's all. There won't be any lab session or anything.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, could you please postpone the compensatory lab and take the experiment 6 first?
Experiment 6 theory is not covered, right? That is for DC to AC
Because
converter.
it will be really hectic for us if all the tests and lab tests are also taken simultaneously. In
There
this,
is nothing called lab test. It is just a Viva.
yes, sir, that only. I think that before 12, if Viva gets completed and those who want compensatory, if we take it in that test week, it would be better, sir.
Only issue is that for Monday batch, anyhow, we cannot do it. And we wanted to make it uniform for all. Why should Tuesday batch will suffer? And for experiment 6, anyhow, this 3-phase inverter and single phase inverter that we won't be able to cover by next Monday, right? I have just one class today. So that is again not. That's what we felt that we won't be able to cover. And anyhow, you are not doing any experiment. So only little bit you're learning on simulation. So that also, if you just do the simulation without going through theory, it doesn't make sense at all. And for the Viva, see, anyhow, you are trying to, let's say, if I do the experiment next week, and you are preparing for the Viva in the coming week. So your preparation is anyhow done, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you prepare 1 week before. That just as a matter of time framing, isn't it? You just prepare your Viva preparation 1 week back, and that's how you prepare, and then just appear for the Viva. You already have done all these experiments, so it should not be difficult for you. Yeah, I'm trying to restart. We'll close. It is not allowing me to share. Yes, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good. So let me know if you see my slides. Is it visible?
Nope. Yeah, now it's visible.
And I have written welcome at the top. Check whether you can see it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this slide I've already uploaded for next 5 lecture. I've already uploaded all the slides in that file section. Please go through them so that during class it will help you. You can take a printout or you can write down some important point. And that's how all slides till single phase inverter I've already uploaded. So today's class, I'll just talk about this sinusoidal pulse width modulation. Remember, we are talking about DC to AC converter. So input will be DC and output we want sinusoidal kind of signal, voltage or current, and how to get that we are going to study today, and we'll study 2-3 different PWM schemes. We'll go slowly on that. So in this recorded lecture, what I tried to show you a very simplistic scheme known as square wave switching scheme. So there what we did, we turn on S1 and S2 together. So across VAB, we got positive voltage, and then we turned on S3 and S4, and that's how we got negative VS. And that's how we got a AC output. But problem was that it was square wave shape, so it is not at all sinusoidal, and voltage magnitude also you cannot control, because as you know, for a square wave, its RMS value is same as Vs, which is this peak value, right? So then how to solve this problem? We saw two techniques. One is single pulse width modulation, that instead of providing positive voltage for entire duration, you apply it for some duration, then for the remaining duration, you apply 0 volt. And how do you apply 0 volt? You turn on S1 and S3 together, or S2 and S4 together, right? So that's how you can insert that 0 voltage duration, and your RMS voltage can be controlled. And sometimes you don't want to give a long pulse, because if you have an inductive kind of load and you are applying a DC voltage for a long time, the current will build up and it may saturate your inductor. So in those cases, instead of applying a long pulse, you break the pulse in equal pulse width and you apply to your load. Then current won't continuously build up, right? So that is also one of the way to solve this problem. But this solution also, this is not closer to sinusoidal, which we want, right? So in today's class, I'm going to show you how to get sinusoidal output. And in between, if you have any question, please stop me and I'll be happy to address. This buck converter you have already studied. Remember that output voltage we express using this equation. Output voltage is D times input voltage, right? D is the duty ratio. And how do you vary the duty ratio? You take a sawtooth carrier that you have seen in the power electronics lab also, and then you take a reference signal or control signal. Okay, reference or modulating signal, and you, as you vary these signals, you will see that you can vary the pulse width. So depending on your requirement, you can sometimes select R1, R2 or some other value, and that's how you can vary the pulse width. Okay. And if you just look at this bigger triangle, which is basically the sawtooth, and if you look at the smaller one, this one, and if you do some geometrical manipulation, you know, this peak by this peak. So basically R by carrier peak is same as this time, which we are going to call T on, okay, by this total time, which is TS. So this T on by TS, as you know, it is nothing but your duty ratio, right? And this carrier peak is in your choice, right? You can decide this carrier peak value to be 1, 10, 100, whatever you want. So if I select my carrier peak value to be 1, that means this reference signal R itself is going to be your duty ratio. Because carrier peak, if you select it 1, R is same as your duty ratio. So you can generate whatever duty ratio you want, you can generate exactly the same value in your reference signal or your control signal. As simple as that. Now, important thing we need to understand is that in this buck converter, if I keep duty ratio fixed, I'll get at the output something like this for a fixed D. And if I could vary the D, what happens? Can I vary D in a sinusoidal fashion? Right? So then what will happen is that think about this time to be 10 millisecond. Again, this is 10 millisecond. Why 10 millisecond I am telling? Because in Indian context, we mostly deal with 50 hertz frequency, right? And 1 by 50 hertz is 20 millisecond. So my one half cycle will be 10 millisecond. The next half cycle will be 10 millisecond, and so on. Okay, this is what I want at the output. This is 10 millisecond. This is 10 millisecond. Right. I'll be sharing you all these written notes, etc. You need not note anything. Just listen, and if you have any doubt, let me know. So what I am going to do in this 10 millisecond, I will have several switching cycles, right? If my switching frequency is this time period is let's say 100 microsecond equal to TS, that's sawtooth, you remember? If that is TS, so you can understand in 10 millisecond, I'll have so many switching cycles, right? In those switching cycle, if I vary my duty ratio sinusoidally, so instead of keeping D equal to let's say 0.5, what I'm doing, initially I'm putting D equal to 0.01, then maybe 0.02, then maybe 0.03, then going to 0.9 maybe to 1, then again I'm coming back to 0. So this is corresponding to your maximum duty ratio, where you're getting maximum output voltage, and then you're again back to 0, and then you're doing like this. So this is how you can create a rectified sinusoidal waveform at the buck converter output. But finally, what we want is this one. Positive cycle, I want this. Negative cycle, I want to reverse this. I don't want it to be in the positive direction. I want it in the negative direction. So what I'm going to do, here I'm creating this kind of signal. Okay. Then when I want positive signal, I'll turn on S1 and S2. So my load will see same positive thing. When I want negative thing, then I'll turn on S3 and S4, right? So then my load will see the negative of the DC bus voltage, which will be this one. And this is how I'll get a complete sine wave at the output. So this is the funda. 10 millisecond, I'm turning on S1 and S2. Next 10 millisecond, I'm turning on S3 and S4. And that's how I'm getting it. And I'm repeating this every cycle. So effectively, the circuit diagram looks something like this. This DC-DC converter is sitting here and giving me this kind of output. Then this inverter is sitting over here and it is just unfolding. Remember the term. It is just unfolding, and that's how at the AC side I'm getting like this. So now my sinusoidal kind of requirement is met. And then I can control the magnitude also, because this peak, if I apply one duty ratio, then I'll get maximum output voltage same as your input voltage. But it is my choice, right? Sometimes I can go up to 0.9, I can go up to 0.5, 0.3, whatever I want. So instead of getting this one, I can also generate this, right? So I can control magnitude also. So all these things we can achieve by employing this kind of very simplistic approach. So what summary, what I am doing, using DC-DC converter, we are generating rectified sine wave of desired magnitude, and using this unfolding inverter, I'm just during negative half cycle, I'm turning on different pair so that at the output I get a negative voltage, and my job is done. But here problem is that there are two stages involved, right? Two converters required. And hence your efficiency will be less. You know, if efficiency of first converter is N1, eta 1 and eta 2, then your total efficiency is going to be eta 1 into eta 2, which will be lesser, right? For example, let's say if this is 0.9 and this is 0.9, so then 0.9 into 0.9 will be around 0.8, right? So it is much lesser. So that's why this kind of cascaded solution, one after another, that is not generally preferred, okay? Because efficiency will be lesser. So how do I solve this? Solve it?
Sir,
Yeah.
so like, for varying the duty ratio sinusoidally, we also need a reference signal which varies sinusoidally, right? Like
Yes. Yes. Go ahead.
Yes, that's only. That's only. Like I wanted to clarify. Like make sure that is it correct? Is it correct or not?
Yeah, yeah. And how to implement that? That also we'll learn. Okay. So my problem was that I was using two different converters. Can I implement all this using a single converter? I don't want to use additional DC-DC converter. I want to use only this inverter and I want to achieve all this what I saw in the last slide. So that is known as, one of the solution is known as sinusoidal pulse width modulation. Okay. And under this we have category like bipolar, unipolar, then a solution called hybrid, that we are going to see how I can achieve this. So to achieve this, what we are going to do, we'll take a triangular signal. Remember, this is triangular. In DC-DC converter, you always use sawtooth. Here we are going to use a triangular. Okay, that you can take as a homework why you want to do that. So I have a triangular signal and I have a modulating signal. Remember this term, okay? Modulating signal and carrier signal. Carrier signal to me is the triangular signal, and modulating signal is for me is that reference sinusoidal signal. Okay, that I'll compare. Okay, and my logic would be, if this modulating signal is greater than triangle carrier, I'll turn on S1 and S2. Okay, that I'm going to show you in next slide. What is my logic? This control signal or modulating signal I am putting here. And triangular signal I am putting it here and I am feeding it to a comparator. And what is my logic? If my control signal is greater than triangle, then I'll turn on S1, S2. And if it is less, I'll turn on S3 and S4. Very simple, right? So look at this. During this zone, your modulating signal is higher than your carrier signal, right? Carrier signal is this side, so it is higher. So you turn on S1, S2. S1, S2. And then after some time, you see during this zone, your modulating signal is lesser than the triangle carrier. So you turn on S3, S4. Now, you know, if you turn on S1 and S2, you get a positive voltage. So you are getting a positive voltage. And if you turn on S3, S4, you get negative voltage. So you're getting a negative voltage, right? As simple as that. But here, since this modulating signal will be higher during peak zone. See, during this zone, your modulating signal will be much higher. Typically, for most of the time, it will be higher than the triangle carrier. That's why you are getting more positive voltage during the peak of your modulating signal. Whereas when you operate in this zone, then most of the time your reference signal is less than your triangle carrier, right? So you're getting more negative things. And for each of the switching cycle, if you take average, then your output voltage will look something like this, which is more like a sinusoidal signal. So what we are doing effectively is that in every switching cycle, we are varying the pulse width that we are giving to my load. And how I am varying those pulse width, I am varying them sinusoidally. And how I am achieving this? I am keeping my carrier signal constant, fixed, but I am varying my modulating signal. So as my modulating signal is varying sinusoidally, my duty ratios are also going to vary sinusoidally. That's how at the output, I'm going to get something like this pulse waveform, but that looks more closer to a sinusoidal. Okay, so this is how I'm going to achieve that. And during positive half cycle also, you see, this is I'm going to call positive half cycle. And this duration I'm going to call negative half cycle. So during positive half cycle, I'm getting positive as well as negative values, right? That's why it is called bipolar. When we talk about unipolar, you will see that during positive half cycle, I'll get only positive and zero values. I'm not going to get any negative values, right? That's why that is called unipolar. But it is called bipolar here because during positive half cycle, you are getting both positive and negative values. And same with negative half cycle, you are getting both positive and negative values. That's why you are calling it bipolar. Now we'll remember some terminology which is very important. So modulating signal, you understood this one. Remember, some student asked this question that finally at the output I want a AC signal, but you are generating AC signal here. Then what? How does it make sense? You already have a sinusoidal signal. You are assuming. Remember, this signal, this sawtooth, triangle carrier, this modulating signal. These are just some signals level thing. You will write these codes in your microcontroller. Some of you must be familiar with lookup table or harmonic oscillator kind of thing. So you just assume that whatever you're doing, this can be simple your code, some equations, right? You want something like this, you write a equation for a sin, maybe a sine theta equation, a math function, okay, inside your microcontroller. So these are just signal level things. Whereas this is your power level thing, which is actually you are feeding some voltage in the load. And how you are controlling this switch, that is coming from your microcontroller. So all these things, this comparison, etc., those will be there inside your microcontroller or DSP, which are very low power, low voltage solution, right? So for example, using a microcontroller, can you generate 230 volt AC? Answer is no, right? Microcontroller can give you hardly 5 volt. So these are just signal level thing, you remember, maybe just mathematical function or something like that. Whereas these are your actual physical system. Using microcontroller, you are just generating gate pulse for all these switching devices, this 4 switching devices. And there is a DC source, which is actually feeding the load through these switches, right? Always remember this difference. Now, this logic also it should be very clear to you. If modulating signal is greater than carrier, I'll turn on S1, S2. Otherwise, I'll turn on S3 and S4. So these are just complementary to each other. And I'm controlling them in a diagonal fashion, right? S1, S2 together, then S3, S4 together, and I'll just repeat it. This term, remember, is very, very important for you. Modulation index. We call it amplitude modulation index. What is it? So I have a modulating signal. Let's say its peak value is Vc. Okay, this peak value. So this Vc is peak value of modulating signal. And V try peak is peak value of carrier. This ratio is known as amplitude modulation index. Another modulation index is frequency modulation index. What is this? It is Fs by F mod. F mod is what? Frequency of modulating signal. And Fs is what? Is your carrier frequency. Right? This triangular frequency, whatever is that frequency is your Fs. F mod is your fundamental signal frequency. Okay. So how do I select this MA, carrier frequency, etc.? That also we are going to study slowly. So I revise again. What is modulation index? Peak value of this sinusoidal modulating signal by peak value of the triangle carrier. And what is frequency modulation index? It is frequency of the carrier by frequency of the modulating signal. Okay. Now let's take an example that at the output is desired value is 230 sine omega t. 230 into root 2. Okay. 230 is RMS. So 230 into root 2 sine omega t. What is omega? It is 2 pi f, right? So this modulating signal should have this same f, what you want. Okay, that should be your f mod. Because whatever modulating signal you are generating, at the output, you are going to get same frequency AC component. Okay, fundamental component. So whatever frequency you want at the load voltage, your modulating signal should have same frequency. Okay, and whatever voltage I want here, Based on that, my MA should be decided. Right, so I can achieve different voltages at the output by controlling MA and different frequency at the output by selecting different modulating signal frequency. And as you can understand, if I use this kind of sinusoidal modulating signal as my as a control variable, I can also select something like this, right? With respect to some reference, let's say theta equal to 0 is my reference. So I can generate a signal like this black one or this red one with respect to a given time frame or theta, right? And that's how you can generate different phase also at the output. So I can control voltage magnitude, I can control frequency, I can control phase also, okay? And that's how all these things can be done in a single inverter. That is the beauty of sinusoidal pulse width modulation. So this MA and MF you have to remember. And one more very important point here, this I'll put slightly upper, okay. Remember in square wave switching scheme, we got fundamental component, then next was third harmonic, next was fifth, and so on. Here what you are going to get is fundamental component. Next is coming at MF. MF is your frequency modulation index, right? So remember, these are the order, third, fifth, these are the order. If you want to convert them into frequency, what you have to do? This 3 into fundamental frequency, right? So if your fundamental frequency is 50 Hertz, that is your first harmonic, right? Or first frequency component. So if that is 50 Hertz, third will be 3 into 50. That means 150 Hertz. So here, if it is fundamental is 50 Hertz, your frequency here will be Fs by F mod. This is MF. This is that third, fifth, that order into fundamental frequency, right? Which is will be going to be same as your F modulating signal. Remember, modulating signal frequency will be same as your fundamental frequency, what you wanted the output. So this will cancel out and you are going to get Fs. What is Fs? It is your carrier frequency. So what I'm trying to say is that if you apply this kind of sinusoidal modulating signal strategy, your harmonic spectrum will look something like this. First, you will see the fundamental component. Next component that will come at carrier frequency. Okay. So if you select your carrier frequency, let's say 10 kilohertz. So first you are going 50 hertz, then you are getting 10 kilohertz directly. You are not getting 150 hertz, 250 hertz. Those lower order harmonics you are not getting. Okay. Directly you are getting near about your switching frequency. Okay. And that's why your filter design will be easier. Filter size will come down, which I discussed in the second lecture. Okay. Which is already uploaded in the YouTube. Follow that if you want. You have any query till now?
Sir, can you explain again the last part, like how we are getting directly Fs?
Yeah, see, logically what you are getting, this output waveform is already looking closer to sinusoidal, right? That's why you are varying this fundamental frequency, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
For example, let's say if you take this DC-DC converter case, what you are doing, let's say this is 10 kilohertz sawtooth signal. So then at the output, you are getting something like this. DC-DC converter, right? This frequency is also 10 kilohertz. If you do a FFT, what you are going to get? 10 kilohertz, then 3 into 10 kilohertz, right? So what I'm trying to say, all this component you're going to get above 10 kilohertz, right? So here also your carrier frequency is already 10 kilohertz and you're multiplying with, you're varying that with respect to 50 hertz signal. So your main component will come from 10 kilohertz because that is your switching frequency component. But you are getting a 50 hertz component because your modulating signal variation is also at the 50 hertz or whatever you want, maybe 100 hertz, whatever you want. Okay. So these two will be the dominating thing. What is your modulating signal frequency? What is that carrier frequency? So main harmonic will come from your carrier frequency. Okay. That's how you're varying this pulse width, right? This frequency is already at 10 kilohertz. So your all harmonics should come from 10 kilohertz. But you're getting a 50 hertz component because this also had a fundamental frequency variation of 50 hertz. So you're getting that 50 hertz. So this is beauty of this sinusoidal pulse width modulation. You are not getting any other unwanted lower order harmonics. Now it's up to you, right? Whether you want to select 10 kilohertz or 5 kilohertz or 20 kilohertz, depends on your requirement. And that's how you can shift your higher order harmonics at a desired value. And that's how you can decide your filter cutoff frequency accordingly. Okay. So this is about bipolar. Let me quickly show you unipolar also and hybrid, and then we'll end up. This question I have already given for you, very, very important for your exams. Okay, some of them I will directly answer while I'll be discussing these issues. Some of them, if I forget or let's say if I don't discuss, you have to understand all of them. Okay, please take a note of this question directly, and you must be very clear about answer for each one of these questions. Okay, again, I'm telling most of them I'll directly answer. In case I forget or if I do not answer, then try to get answer on your own. Else you let me know. I'll be happy to answer again and again. But these questions are very, very important. So I'll start with the first question. In DC-DC converter, duty ratio expression is very easy. Okay, how do I get duty ratio? This is the T on time by TS. That is how I get duty ratio. But remember, everything was kind of unipolar here, right? Everything was DC. Here, this is my zero line. So I'm getting something negative, something positive. If I want to have a one-to-one relation, right? One-to-one mapping. For understanding this duty ratio funda, so then this should be my zero line. Okay. And then whatever I have, I should shift this signal with this negative part. So I have a AC signal. I add some DC offset with it, and everything becomes unipolar. And then I'll be able to say these two are quite similar in nature, right? The same thing, remember, we did in sensing circuit also long back. A microcontroller cannot take negative value, right? So you have to add that DC offset with the AC signal to make it look DC, and then only you can feed to your microcontroller, right? Microcontroller can take 0 to 5 volt only. It cannot take negative. So similar concept. This is actually this modulating signal and carrier signal. These are actually AC signal, but let us shift it with this negative part so that it becomes a unipolar or DC kind of signal. And then I'll compare each other and I'll get a direct expression for duty ratio. So this is carrier peak. And what is the carrier peak? This is this to this. Okay. This to this is carrier peak. Similarly, this to this will be your carrier peak. So to make the signal DC in nature, I have to add carrier peak with your signal. That's it. So my DC offset is same as carrier peak. What is carrier peak? It is the peak value of the triangle signal. Okay. That is the maximum value in the negative side. So if I add that value, my thing will be DC in nature. So you see, this is my modified zero line. Very easy. I have already added C peak. So now this effectively has become 2 C peak. Just check. Because initially it was C peak. I have added now initial zero line was here earlier, original. But this is modified zero line. So it has become 2 carrier peak now. And how do I express this signal, modulating signal? Initially it was VC sin omega t, right? What is VC? This peak value. Peak value was VC. So how do I write equation for this modulating signal? It is VC sin omega t. To make it DC, I'm adding C peak. Okay, what is C peak again? This value. This value is C peak. So I've added C peak, and now the signal has become DC, and this is my modified zero line. So this is equivalent to my R now. See, this R was the reference signal. Now this sinusoidal signal is also behaving same as this R. just as if in the R I have given AC variation like this. If I had done that, right? Everything is DC, but I've given a AC variation in the R. That's it. So I got equation for R, carrier peak plus VC sin omega t, and that I have to divide with C peak, right? What is C peak for DC case? It was this value. 0 to the carrier peak, right? That is my C peak. Here from 0 to peak value, it is 2 carrier peak. So this is my duty ratio expression. This is the modulating signal. And this is my carrier peak. Very simple, right? So if I simplify it, I'll get this simplistic equation. So that is the duty ratio expression for the switch S1. So in case you have not got it, just spend 5 minutes, you will get it. I summarize what I did. This AC signal, first I made it DC by adding an offset. Why I did that? So that I can relate with my understanding of DC-DC converter and duty ratio, right? Duty ratio is nothing but on time by total switching period. So same equation I'll follow here. Just I'll make this concept in DC, right? Instead of taking all signal in AC domain, I'll shift it to DC. Then I'll apply my study known strategy T1 by TS, and that's how I'll write duty ratio expression. As simple as that. So what benefit I'm going to get if I do that? So DS1 you have already got, and you know S1 and S2 will be switched on together. So this is same as DS2 also, right? Remember, these two are going to be turned on together. Okay. So DS1 you know, DS2 you know. What about DS4? Remember, they have to be complementary in nature, right? This is the bracket. These two switch cannot be turned on together. Okay. So remember, in a DC-DC converter, if duty ratio of this switch was D, then it has to be 1 minus D for continuous conduction mode, of course. So D times main switch will be turned on, then remaining 1 minus D time, then diode will turn on, right? Same philosophy here, you see. S1 you are turned on for D times, the DS1 times, then S4 will conduct for remaining time. And that's how we are going to get this total TS. So how we are getting DS4 is 1 minus DS1. DS1. Okay. Same thing as your buck converter. Nothing fancy here. So if you just simplify, you are going to get this. Remember, DS4 and DS3 will be same because they are turned on together, right? So I got duty ratio expression for all the switches. Okay. And why I need that, I'll show you next slide. Now again, I'll take a reference of buck converter. Remember, if I had a load here, this is my zero line, this is VA, right? This point is A. So when this switch is turned on, S1, my VAO is same as VS, right? Like a buck converter. And when switch is off, my VAO is 0, like a buck converter again, okay? So how buck converter output voltage looks like? V0 is D into V in, right? Vs, okay? Whereas D is the duty ratio for the top switch, the main MOSFET, main switch, right? Same thing we're doing here, see? Forget about the second leg. Think about the first leg. So this is leg 1. And I'm writing expression for VAO. When I turn on top switch, VAO is same as VS. When I turn off top switch, my bottom switch will conduct. VAO is 0. Same as buck converter. Okay. So VAO, I can write DS1 into VS. DS1 is nothing but duty ratio of this top switch. Same thing. So that's how I already know DS1 expression. I've written it. Same thing I can do with VBO. What is VBO? For the second leg, right? This is for leg 2. So basically, load will be connected here, right? So I'll have one more leg. This will be S3. This will be S2. So VBO also I'll get similar way because switch expression for S3 I already derived. So then what is VAB? It is nothing but VAO minus VBO. Again, very simple equation, and that's how we're getting this. So output voltage V load is VAB is VS MA sin omega t. This is instantaneous expression, right? So V0 RMS will be VS MA by root 2. Very simple. This is peak value for a sinusoidal signal. Okay, and peak value I'll divide it by root 2. So what I'll get? I'll get RMS value. So you can see RMS for a given VS, I can always control my RMS value by varying MA. And how do I vary MA? I'm going to keep MA is nothing but, if you remember, VC by V try or V C peak. VC by C peak, right? C peak is your carrier frequency. This is constant. We are not going to vary it. Then I'll vary this V control, okay, or VC. Sometime I'll select this one if I want lesser value. Sometime I can select this one. Okay, so that's how I can vary MA and I can vary my output voltage. Okay, but what is range of MA? This is 0 to 1, right? Because MA, I don't want to exceed carrier peak. It will go to overmodulation. Okay, always remember, like in DC-DC converter, right? Your desired duty ratio range is 0 to 1. Similarly, this MA is 0 to 1. Okay, so at the output, you will get maximum instantaneous value, same as your input voltage. So this is nothing but a effect wise, it is a buck kind of converter. Okay, like a step down converter. So remember how did we derive this equation? So by controlling MA, I can control RMS value. By controlling this modulating signal frequency, I can control frequency at the output. Okay.
Sir?
Again, bola.
So like in this arrangement, in the output, we'll like finally we'll get a square wave only, right? Like we have to apply some filter to get the desired sinusoidal component, right?
Right.
Here.
Your output will look something like this pulse thing. Okay, but it is not a square wave, remember. Your pulse widths are varying in every switching cycle, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Like the pulse width actually varies sinusoidally, right? Like
Yes.
according to the ratio. And the peak value of the square wave is equal to Vs, right? The source voltage that we are using in the inverter circuit, right? The peak.
Correct. Correct. Then I'll apply filter, but my main advantage is filter size will be less because I can, my next harmonic component I want to eliminate is shifted to high frequency, right? That is same as your carrier frequency. Is that okay?
So like earlier you said like if we use buck converter and then we use the like inverter circuit, it will lead to two-stage and decrease efficiency, right? So yeah, now like here also we have to apply filter also, right? In the end, so will that not decrease my efficiency again?
See, in buck converter also you already had a LC filter, right? Remember?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. You got your answer, right? So we are not adding anything new actually. See, in buck converter, what we remember, we need one switch, one diode, one LC filter, right? So all this we are eliminating, but LC filter we are reusing, assume that at the inverter output. But this switch, this diode I am saving, right? So my cost will be saved. My these losses in the switching, those will be saved. The driver circuit cost will be saved. Understood?
Yes, sir.
Right. So this is a very, then so for bipolar, what I understood that during positive half cycle, I don't want any negative voltage, right? But bipolar is giving me that. Okay. And also this next dominant harmonic is coming at the order of MF or sidebands. Is there any better solution than this? Is this unipolar? Okay. See here, final goal is during positive half cycle, you see, I'm not getting any negative value. Okay. It is between positive and 0. Positive and 0. During negative half cycle, I'm getting negative and 0. That's why it is called unipolar. Remember at the output, this VAB is going to look like this pulse thing. And that sinusoidal thing is kind of a filtered version. Okay. But at the inverter output here, you are going to get this pulse thing. And another important thing, the next dominant harmonic you will get a 2 MF. Okay. Remember in bipolar we got MF, here we are going to get 2 MF. So filter size will even come down by a factor of 2. What is the main difference with bipolar in the implementation? Same triangle. Okay. Same triangle carrier we are using. But modulating signal is also, one modulating signal is same than bipolar. But we are taking another extra modulating signal, see. Extra modulating signal, which is just 180-degree phase shifted, okay? Then the original modulating signal, that's it. And how I'm controlling? Here, legs, individual legs are controlled independently. What is the meaning? In bipolar, you remember I was always controlling S1 and S2 together, right? So these two legs were not controlled independently. It was controlled as a single entity. But here, this leg 1 is controlled individually, leg 2 is controlled individually. For leg 1, I'm using this original modulating signal. For leg 2, we are using this phase shifted by 120 degree, the second modulating signal. What does it mean? We are controlling both the legs independently. Okay. And what is the control logic? As V control or V modulating signal, remember, I sometimes make this confusion. V control is same as V modulating. These are same meaning. Okay. Control signal is nothing but this modulating signal. So when V modulating signal is greater than triangular, I am turning on S1 and a invert of S1 is S4. You remember S1 and S4 cannot turn on together. That has to be complementary, right? So this NOT gate will make sure that they are not turned on together. S1 on, S4 off, S1 off, S4 on. And for the leg 2, I'm going to take that 180-degree phase shifted modulating signal. That is the main difference. Okay. This basic definition remains same, right? Here also VAB, you are going to get Vs MA sin omega t. So voltage gain was nothing changed. Okay. Only what importantly changed is this MF you see. It is shifted to now 2 MF. This dominant harmonic is now coming at 2 MF. So your filter size requirement will come down. Your voltage waveform you see, it got changed. So basically what will happen is that you will see that in bipolar, positive half cycle, my switching sequence was S1, S2, then S3, S4, then again S1, S2. In unipolar, during positive half cycle, what you'll see, your switching sequence will something like this: S1, S2, then one zero state will be included. S1, S3, again S1, S2, S1, maybe then S2, S4. So this will be in, all these things will happen in one TS, whereas this thing will happen in one TS. This you have to take a homework. Okay. How do you do it? Just simply implement this in MATLAB and you'll get all the gate pulse for all these switches. Then you will understand it more. What is TS? TS is nothing but your carrier switching frequency, right? So in bipolar, in one carrier frequency, only two transitions are happening, right? Now two pulses only coming in the output. But in unipolar, you are getting four pulses. Effectively, it gets doubles up, but same carrier frequency. Okay, that is the beauty in unipolar. Within same TS, you will figure out you are actually having four transitions. So plus V 0 plus V 0. Okay, so effectively double number of pulses you are getting at the output. Whereas here you are getting plus V minus V, no 0. Then again it will start from plus V. So in one switching time period, you are getting plus V minus V. Here what you are getting plus V0 plus V0. So effectively number of pulses got doubled, as if your frequency, switching frequency got doubled. even though it's same carrier frequency. This is a very interesting feature of unipolar PWM. How do you realize? Again, you just implement this in MATLAB, just get a triangle carrier of 10 kilowatts or something, take a modulating signal and phase shift modulating signal by 180 degree and compare them, get switching pulses for all these S1, S4. Same thing you do with bipolar, then you will understand that what I'm saying is makes sense. Okay, then maybe we can do it in our experiment number 6 also. What is the time? Yeah, I just have 2 minutes, so we'll wind up. So this, remember, in module lecture 2 I mentioned what is active stage, what is freewheeling stage. When you are applying plus V or minus V, plus V or minus V, that is basically active state, and when you are applying 0 volt, that is freewheeling state. So bipolar, there was no freewheeling state, but in unipolar you are having freewheeling state. Yeah, I think if you have any question, I'll address. Otherwise, we'll stop. It is already 10:57 in my watch. Next, what we'll cover is basically hybrid scheme, which is an in-between solution between this bipolar and unipolar. And we'll also summarize what are the differences between all these schemes. And then we'll wind up. So I'm not discussing it. You can just, we'll discuss it in the next class. If you have any query, please let me know. And spend some time understanding this concept. These are very interesting concepts indeed. Yeah, any questions? Remember, you have to implement them in your experiment 6. Okay, so you have to understand them if you want to do it in a proper manner. And it's very straightforward if you understand the basic concepts. Okay, so if you don't have any question, maybe I'll wind up so that you get 2 minutes to refresh and join the next class. I have to stop the recording.